Black community in PEI was
devastated,
struggling with how to grieve and how to just deal with all of the emotions that surfaced around that.
Yeah.
You organized a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been such a long time ago now, but it's only been about 2 years. I think my recent memory of it was when, George Floyd was murdered. There was public outcry, and even on a national level too. And I remember that we got some community members together and just the public on a Skype call, and we didn't have any agenda. We were just talking about our experiences, as Black people living in PEI, and how we were feeling about the George Floyd incident, and just racism in general. And I think there was a lot of community and solidarity, a lot of crying too, a lot of emotions, that kind of thing. We wanted there to be some action, some steps to take, and we wanted to also join the large movement that was happening globally, as to show that it's not only happening in the States or what have you, but it's also happening right here locally, in Canada and as well as in Prince Edward Island.
From what I can remember, it was a really rough time for me and my family, because we were seeing all these things like that. It's affecting our people. Like, it was really traumatic to see, and people were just constantly posting, like, even just trauma porn. Like, it was in your face all the time, right? And I got connected to one specific story. The guy's name was Elijah, and he was walking home and had gotten stopped, or he had some type of illness as well, and then he got stopped and ended up dying because they gave him a lethal dose of something. And that really got to me, and I was sitting with my mom, and I cried to her, and we cried together and talked about all of that stuff that was going on. And then I had been asked by BCS, someone from BCS, to speak at the event, and so then we all talked about it, and I wrote something up, and we had the protest.
I am going to call it the way I see it.
You better go!
If you don't see color, you don't see me.
Black lives are under attack. What do we do?
Stand up, fight back! As a human, I am equal.
As an ally, you need to scream and cry with us. You have to be actively anti-racist.
Why don't you allow me get the same treatment you give to my other counterpart?
We'll be demanding for too long.
Today isn't Black Lives Matter Day on PEI. This is just the beginning.
All we ask for you is just give us a chance. Let our lives be of value.
I find it easier to forgive someone who doesn't know than someone who does. Now you know. You all can know.
Please, don't look at my color. Just love me. Because I love you. I love you so much. I'll take care of you. I'm gonna take care of you.
Yes.
We were talking amongst ourselves, thinking, if 1,000 people show up at this march, then that'll be a success. Could you imagine if we had 1,500 people come to this march? Success. So when we got there that day, and there was, the police estimated there was 8,000 to 10,000 people at the march that day. But we were there at the gathering point, at the muster point, and people just kept coming and coming, and more people were arriving, and more people were arriving.
I had never seen that many people on PEI in one time, ever.
Yeah.
For me personally, it was my first time, going to a march like that, because, I grew up in the Bahamas, but then when I moved here in PEI, I was in university, and we never had anything like this. We never had this, march for Black Lives. So I went in not knowing what to expect, but I think the first thing for me is that when we first arrived at the in front of the Legislative Assembly, there was just so much people, and it felt very welcoming. I felt the community there, and everybody had the same mindset. And we were talking and we were laughing and having that back and forth. But I think the minute that we actually started to march, the tone kind of shifted, and you could feel just the tone shift. And it was basically everyone was just very serious. We could tell on their minds were thinking about George Floyd and others, even in Canada, who suffered at the hands of police brutality. And we were just on a mission basically. You could just tell.
So we didn't know what the day would turn out like, or what the energy would be like, or if we'd even have allies, or would it just be, kind of the usual handful of 10, 20 people that tend to get involved. And to see that many people I think it was really a beautiful day to see that there was that many people who really supported that movement and supported us as community members and wanted to wanted to really demonstrate their allyship. I think that was really amazing.
Yeah, it was.
As we walked, there was more chants being given out, and the people around me seemed really passionate about the protest, which was really good to see. I felt a lot of anger because there were people on the outsides of the protest that I don't think really understood the meaning to us, and even when we got up on stage, there was someone who was trying to protest against our protest. There were people who have done people of color wrong for centuries at the protest, so there was a lot of mixed emotions, like anger at the fact that we had to even protest, and anger at the people who were there that we were protesting against. And on the other side, I did feel a lot of joy seeing that there were people supporting us. Like there were thousands of people supporting, so that was really good to see. Me personally, I felt a lot of anger and joy in that sense.
Yeah, in terms for the community, I feel like the solidarity is still there. So even through the march, there's a lot of persons I have never met before, and I'm still in conversations with them. I still keep in contact with them. We created a lot of WhatsApp groups too, and we stay connected as a community that way. And now we even use it as a hub where any information that we have related to government or community, just even fun events that are happening, we still contact each other through that and share those resources. So that's something that really good that came out of coming together through the march.
The changes I've seen in PEI have mostly been within my own community. I feel like we're more together, like there's more sisterhood and brotherhood than there was before. I feel like because we're seeing it in such a close proximity that fear kind of brought us together, but also the newfound Black joy brought us all together. Changes in PEI, I'd say a little bit in the curriculum, mostly just awareness, not lessons or anything like that, but awareness, and people are actually listening and hearing. So it's more of a conversation, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done.
We wanted the march to raise awareness of the problem, and we wanted it to be a jump-off point to start affecting change in PEI.
When we approach government to establish a position to review legislation and policy through an anti-racism lens, and to have a more representation voice in government and PEI, that came out of the march too. So that's another positive that also impacts the community as well.
On an institutional level, so when you think of institutions like specifically the provincial government and UPEI, it sparked an awareness that there is a problem in Canada. I think before that, a lot of people always were under the assumption that there isn't as much of a problem here in Canada. It's the US. No, there is a problem here in Canada as well. And I think it unearthed a lot of the Black history in not just Canada, but also here in PEI. And now you guys are doing amazing research on the Black history in PEI, and that is in the Maritimes in general, and that's excellent. So it sparked a conversation, and not only did it spark just the conversation, it sparked the need for action. And so within government, there is now a need to start working on these policies and fixing these structural issues that are present. And also at UPEI, I work in the EDI Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Office at UPEI, and it all stemmed from that march, really. It all stemmed from that. Before then, we didn't really have much of that at UPEI. There wasn't much of an awareness of that at UPEI. But since then, it became obvious that, okay, there is a glaring problem here in Canada as well. It's just more quiet. There is a problem here in PEI. We're not the gentle island that we keep pushing that we are. We can be the gentle island if we work on these problems. And I think that's what the march did. It triggered work.